Thank you, Faizan. Thank you for the opportunity to connect. Thank you for hosting me on this interview podcast. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Manu, for accepting this thing because you know that this is an interview season and a lot of people are worried about. So you advise me that we do this. So it will help a lot of people. So thank you so much for this uh, uh, opportunity because a lot of people need guidance. So this is full of stress. This is a marathon. So let's begin.
Absolutely. I think this is a peak time for all the applicants. After the application process, the next step is the interview process, and then residents match, and then they have to prepare for the residency. So there are three steps, and I know it is a very tough time. My suggestion to the candidates is this is not your entire life. So this is a part of your journey. You've gone through quite a lot of accomplishments already. You've gone through medical school, you've gone through schooling, you've done so many things in your lifetime. And this is another part of that process. So don't make this your life. If you make this your life, then there's no end to the stress that's on your plate. Everyone has some form of stress in their life, and everyone is trying to do things that they can to help themselves. So my suggestion to the audience is, please remember, stress is not something you can completely get out of your life. The most important thing is how you make it your how you make this just a part of your journey, but not your whole life, as if USMLE is not your life. So remember that, and that's how you will be able to get through this, and it will be successful. I assure you. Sometimes it takes time, but it will be okay.
Dr. Manu, your voice is gone. I think I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear now.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was waiting for your question. I've
So let's start from the ERAS. So that our theme. So ERAS, right? So you give the ERAS applications. Let's begin what the requirement of the ERAS application. So when the deadline, so that can. So first thing, ERAS application. So let's start from the ERAS application.
Absolutely. So, when you think of ERAS application, that's the first step in this whole process. Now, filling out an application is just a part of that process. I would encourage students who are aspiring to come towards the US for further clinical training to truly prepare themselves during medical school training to be ready for this application, because this application starts somewhere around August. The timelines are out there with ERAS and NRMP. But what I'm here to tell you is your preparation should start in medical school. You should start looking to become excellent during medical school. You should learn to actually be able to practice. It's not about just the medical knowledge, it's about how you learn the subject, how you are capable of being able to care for patients. Once you compile all those skills, During the same time, you should also work on research and scholarly activities. You should make sure that you develop skills around the research and scholarly activity and also accrue some publications. Now, these publications can be posters, can be peer-reviewed journal articles, can be even some textbook chapters. You should also consider acquiring volunteerships. For example, you should volunteer in some organizations that help humanity. You should do anything that is dear to your heart. So acquiring good medical knowledge, acquiring good patient care skills, developing good research and scholarly activity skills and knowledge, and also will be the most important thing that you should do. So once you do all of these things before the application, then you will have enough stuff to actually put in the application. If you're not preparing yourselves throughout your medical school journey for this application, then it's going to be hard for you to actually fill anything in that application. So for listeners and viewers, I highly encourage you to take medical school training seriously, irrespective of you're coming to US or not. But if you're trying to come to the US, you really have to take that medical school training phase very seriously so that you can build up your CV. Now, when we get to the ERAS application state, few things you should be mindful of is make sure to read the ERAS application reference guide. If you type in Google, or even if you go to the ERAS website, there is a user guide that ERAS always puts out. Now, when you look at it, and you will see all the steps that are necessary that you should pay attention to when you're filling the application. If you read that user guide, and as you're filling the application section by section, if you read that guide, you will get all your answers. You will not have to go to people to help, figure out what is to be written. Yes, obviously, if you want it refined and things like that, there are a lot of people who can help you. But when you're actually filling in the content, it's good to read that guide and then fill the application, because if your application is not accurate, that is going to be the biggest thing that might hurt you. Now, when we talk about the application and what you need to focus or pay attention the most, number one, your entire medical journey and how you're writing your degree, your start date, your completion dates, it is important to highlight any master's degrees that you have in the other degree sections. And then when you get to the experience section, pay attention to the type of experience, the location of where you received this experience, what was the focus area of that experience, and then what were the key characteristics that you actually gained out of that experience. So it is important for you to actually look into the user guide to receive what guidance you need to fill that section. Just writing observership as work or medical education is not right. You will see if somebody has to write medical education in that experience section, the story is different. What qualifies for medical education or what qualifies for volunteership, they're very different. So please look at that user guide before you fill out the application. As we move further along in the application process, personal statement is another big thing. I know you've heard from a lot of people, and I'm sure there are lots of websites out there that talk about personal statement. My 2 cents on the personal statement is let it be your story. think, you will find the story why you've joined medicine. Now, it might be a story where your parents told you to study and go either into engineering or medicine, or it might be your own story. But once you get into medicine, at some point, there would have been something that would have touched your heart, something that you would have done something good for people, or something that motivated you to do further. Otherwise, you'd be doing something else, right? You're still trying to pursue your careers in medicine. So there is something that's driving you in this path. So you need to see and look into yourselves to get that out. Once you have that, then you bring that personal statement journey into the US and elaborate on why you want to pursue your journey in the US as further, medical graduates and beyond. That's very important that you highlight some of your leadership skills, some of your volunteerships, some of your research skills, any of your medical knowledge skills. Like, for example, if you were a gold medalist in some of your subjects, or if you got honors in something, it is good to highlight those in one paragraph in your personal statement, because it speaks about your credibility too. So that's very important. Then in the ERAS application, the next topics I want to highlight are meaningful experience and impactful experience. They're two different things. When you choose meaningful experience is talking about the three experiences that you've chosen to reflect you as a person, or the experiences that speak about you more eloquently, and the experiences that you want to share with the programs that you're very proud of. So there are two things when you pick meaningful experiences. One, you want to share those experiences that speak about your talent and qualities. And then you also want to share those programs or experiences that will speak about your skills. So they have to be together. One might speak about one thing, the other might speak about the other thing. But when you pick those personal, meaningful experiences that you share with programs, you need to be aware of that. Now, when you write about them, please read the instructions. Don't just write what your heart says. I love it when you write what your heart says, but it has to have a structure, and it has to tie the key characteristics that you actually shared in your experience section. So that's how you have to build that story. Coming along to the final aspect in the ERAS application, the piece that is called as impactful experience might not be relevant to every applicant. So please look at the ERAS application guide, understand what they're trying to tell you about what is impactful experience. And once you look at that, then if you feel that, yes, you have a story to share, I think that's when you put that in. And when you share such impactful experiences, I would encourage you not to focus on telling the tough situation alone, but I would encourage you to speak a little bit about what you got out of that experience and how you're moving forward. So that's my suggestion on the experience piece. So those are my few suggestions on the ERAS application.
Okay, Dr. Mannuru, one of the another thing that is interview. So the impact of interview on the performance of the ranking process. That thing we also discussed today. So impact of the interview and the performance on the ranking process. Can you please highlight this?
Absolutely, yes. So interview is very important. This is the second most important step of the process in order to get into residency. It is not the second step in the process of matching, but it is the second step in the process of getting into residency or going on to do residency on day one. Now, Once your application reaches the programs, it is clear that and if they offer an invite to a candidate for interview, it is clear that they have crossed the basic requirements that their program has for a candidate. Now, please understand. Please understand that objectives that there might be certain criteria, there might be certain objectives that a program has, and the objectives might be different from a candidate. So not necessary that every candidate will have the same kind of objectives as every program has. So obviously, if candidates are not offered an interview, that does not completely mean that they're not capable. What I'm trying to get to is just hang in there, because there might be something different that you want versus what the program wants, or there might be something different what the program wants versus what you have. So it has to be a match at some point. So please remember, don't get disheartened if you don't get an interview. And if you get an interview, please make sure that you make the best use and you perform to the best possible way, even in that first interview. Sometimes I have seen people get 10, 15 interviews and they don't get matched. Sometimes I have seen people get only 2 interviews and they have matched successfully. So my suggestion is, don't take a chance even for that one interview or the first interview. Now, when you think of how do you prepare for an interview, one, you have to have the stage very clear. So when you have that stage, what I mean is, let's say if it's a virtual platform, you have to make sure that you have the right camera, lighting, mic, audio system, and then followed along, you really have to be well groomed and well dressed. So for example, you should consider a plain shirt with a well-colored, a blue or a black overcoat and a good tie, well groomed. You should be properly shaven. You should have your hair done. And you really have to understand the verbal, non-verbal communication forms. For example, when you have your interviewer, try to position the interviewer right under your camera. So when you have that positioned, obviously then you're talking to them and it's going to look good. But if you have your interviewer positioned in such a way that they're either to the side of the screen or this side of the screen, then you'll be looking towards them, and then it will look like as if you're not looking at the camera. So always remember, bring them to the front, bring them in front and right under the camera. So then you can actually be looking at them and talking to the camera too. So that is an important piece that you really have to keep in mind. Then the second thing is, please remember, use your hands. Consider having a communication like how you normally have with people. Say thank you. It's okay. I am so thankful for your opportunity that you have given me, and things like that. And have a smile. I mean, don't laugh, but at the same time, don't also be stoic. Have a balance. And those are some important things that you should understand when you're on stage. Now, when you are in person, if you're being offered an interview and you go in person, please remember, interview is one of the biggest factors that is used to rank candidates. Once they have accepted you as an applicant, the next thing is they're looking to see if you match their intent or their objectives, and you match their workflows, you match their teams. That's what they're looking for. So when you go in person, please remember, you have to interact with everyone in a respectful way. Do not act, because if you act, it will be obvious afterwards. But I would encourage you to uh, refine your skills and be respectful when you get there. Once you get there, prepare yourself for the interview. And one important thing that I would tell additionally is learn the names. If you have someone going by the name, I don't know, Paswilko. Now, you really have to practice how they're being, called, or how that name is pronounced. Otherwise, it won't look as if you're coming prepared. I'm just giving you some examples that might help you shine out. Like, for example, let's say you come to my interview, or you come to one of my programs interview, and let's say I'm the interviewer, and I introduce myself saying, "Hey, I'm Dr. Dev Mannuru." Now, in your application packet, you might have seen Devendranath Mannuru. If you choose, you can call me anything you want, but I have already introduced myself saying, "Hey, I'm Dr. Dev Mannuru." So when you reply back, if you would say, "Hi, Dr. Mannuru, nice to meet you," I would feel validated that you're actually listening and you're actually talking after you've understood what I said. That's number one. Number two, listen. First, listen to the question and then answer. Don't just be ready to answer a question because you have an answer. No. Listen, take a few seconds, understand what they're trying to ask you, and then answer. That's the second most important thing during an interview. Now, for you to do all of these things, you really have to know about the program. And what should you know about the program? Look for the program's vision, mission, aims, objectives. Look at their curriculum. Look at their other activities that they offer. Look at their research and scholarly activities. Look at their well-being aspects. Check out where their residents are today. So know about the program and then go into the interview. So those are some few important steps that I think you should consider before going to an interview. And one final thing on this question is avoid sarcasm, avoid politics, avoid unnecessary humor, and avoid alcohol and anything else that can impair your thinking. What I'm trying to say is, if you go for a pre-dinner, you don't have to indulge in heavy alcohol consumption. That's not necessary. If you are, going for an interview in the morning, don't party out at night and then just go like that for an interview. You might as well not go for the interview. So these are some important things you really have to keep in mind. You might not think about them, but they matter. Over to you, Faiza.
Okay. Dr. Mannuru, can you give me some highlights, some important filter that program director commonly used?
So the filters are a different topic altogether. So now how filters work is, see, like I said, each program has their own expectations. For example, see, when you look at the East Coast, they have so many programs, and each program hosts no less than 30 to 70 residents at sometimes. So when you have such a heavy workforce and such a big program, their filters will be different or can be different. Now, when you have a program that's only 4 candidates per year and they're in some rural area, then obviously their objectives will be to train students who will stay in their community and serve that area and serve that population. So when you look at this side, there might be a different filter that programs might put in. And when you look at the other side, there might be a different filter that programs might put in. So there's no real set standard filters that programs use. The filters are in the hands of program directors. And most of the times, program directors will put in filters to satisfy the objectives and aims of a program. Common filters, there's the USMLE score filter, then there's a year of graduation filter, and then there's also, if there's a need for visa or no visa filter. So there are certain filters like these. Lately, people are also looking for holistic assessment of applications. So I think there are certain filters that can also pick up if students have mentioned about US clinical experience, if students have mentioned about research and scholarly activity, if students have mentioned about leadership in any platform of their application, be it CV or ERAS application or the PS, or if students have referred to things like projects that they have done or any diversity, equity, and inclusion. So some of these might be picked up through the application, and there are certain filters that can also help with that. So short answer is there are many filters, and each area and program can put in different filters to satisfy their objectives.
Dr. Manu, can you read the chat box? There is a question from the participant.
Yes, I see. During the interview, when we are asked any ethical questions, is it okay to explain in detail my thought process before coming to the answer? For example, if I'm posed with an ethical dilemma, should I talk about the dilemma and lay in my responses instead of giving a yes or no, or just give a direct one-line answer? Prithvi, I'm not sure what that ethical question is. Usually in interviews, people are importantly told to avoid asking any conflicting questions. So interviewers are also given instructions not to ask questions that are not relevant and not to ask questions that are not ethical. So they shouldn't be asking those questions. I am curious to understand a little further on what question you have in your mind so that I could give you a good answer. Would you mind putting in that question in the chat box?
Okay, so participant can write their question in the chat box. So Dr. Mannuru can read and answer that question accordingly. So
I think Tessa Ganesh has a question. She's raised her hand.
Yeah, can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you.
How are you, Doc?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good. My name is Dr. Zaganesh. I am IMG from Ethiopia. I had two questions.
Please.
The first one is how is the best way of explaining, tell me about yourself? And the second question is how to know if the program director is engaged with my answer and if he feels right or if he is understanding my explanations, how can I tell that the program director is engaged with my answers?
It's a good question, Ganesh. So, one second. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
yes,
you.
Dr. Manu, you're clearly audible.
Okay, thank you. So, see, tell me about yourself is a very tough question. And I think slowly, people are also cutting back on asking that question because I personally don't have a set criteria on what I'm looking for in a tell me about yourself question. Because it's such a broad question, and it can mean people telling you different things. But when I think, this is just my personal impression, so Ganesh, tell me about yourself. If somebody asks you, what they're looking to see is how quickly can you give an elevator pitch. Please Google elevator pitch. Elevator pitch is basically something where you are getting into an elevator and you have to impress a CEO or a company head or whatever, and you want to put everything about yourself in 30 seconds. So that's what's called an elevator pitch. So try and look up what elevator pitch is and what people actually put in an elevator pitch, and see how much you can get out of that and use it for the tell me about yourself question. Second thing, when you are asked about tell me about yourself, what they're looking for is more of your professional qualities, accomplishments, and why you are there. So in a nutshell, in a quick way. So you could even say, I'm a graduate from Ethiopia with excellent medical knowledge and skills. I've gone through quite a lot of research and scholarly activities and been a great part of volunteership. In order to pursue my further journey in training myself, I felt US is the best place. And that's how I moved to the US and started applying for programs. During my research, I identified that your program carried certain objectives and aims that matched my interests, and I am here. So this is a small example on how I would put my tell me about yourself, answer. Now, once you say this, then the program director might ask you, okay, what objectives matched your aims and objectives? If they ask you, then obviously you know that they're listening, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I do.
Right? If they ask you, oh yeah, come on, can you tell me what are those aims and objectives? Then you have your window to move to the next step and share the information. But if you're not prepared and you're just saying this statement, then you're in a problem. So it's very important that you prepare about the program. See, it's so hard to prepare about the program effectively unless you have a structured way on how you're going to look at the program. Like I said, vision, mission, aims, objectives, curriculum, think in that fashion and write it down. See, you might apply to 100 programs and you might get 15 interviews. If you cannot look up your 15 programs properly, then what are you putting efforts in? I don't understand, right? We have to put thorough efforts to learn and understand about the program and not just walk into an interview. If you do that, you'll be successful. Now, your second question, how do we know if the program director is engaged? I think I answered partially in the first question itself, but then sometimes you can tell. And don't take it personal, because they are already tired in some level. I'm not saying that they're fully tired and they're coming for an interview. That's not what I'm meaning. But what I'm trying to say is some program directors get about 5,000 applications in spite of filters. So after filters, if they are getting 5,000 applications and they're having to go through and call almost I know some programs call even 1,000 interviews. And if they have to mobilize so many people to actually interview 1,000 people, you have to remember some of these programs, the program director interviews all of them. Some programs, not all. So when you have a situation like that, you might sometimes perceive that the program director is not fully there, but they are there. Trust me, they might not show you. So don't let that make you feel low if they're not fully engaged to that question, because you will build the story as you move forward. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Dr. Manu, can you look at the chat box? There's two questions in the chat box.
Okay, so I see Prithvi put the question. For example, you see your co-resident getting favors from an attending and you're missing out on opportunities. How do you approach that situation? So, Prithvi, you can always ask a follow-up question. It's not necessary that you have to always answer a question. So now, if somebody puts this question to me, I would clarify. So, Dr. Mannuru, when you say favors, what type of favors are the residents receiving from this attending? That'd be a follow-up question you could ask. The second thing you could also try to do for a question like this is, I understand that a co-resident is receiving favors from an attending, and it is obvious, and I am missing out on the opportunities. How I would approach this is, I would take it to the next leadership. I would take it to the program leadership and have a conversation about what my perception is. You should never label some situation as if it's the truth, because sometimes when you see something, you're probably seeing only one side of the story. You might not know the other side of the story, and your perception might be as if it's a favor, and maybe it's something that's already been agreed upon. We don't know. So if you have a situation like this, you should go to the program leadership and then have a discussion asking, I have a clarifying question. I am seeing this happen. My perception is it is a favor. What do you think? Can you help me with this? So that's how you could answer it too.
Dr. Mannuru, there is another question in the chat box.
So if we send a letter of intent to a program that we haven't signaled in specialties like neuro with just 8 signals, is that going to be viewed positively or negatively? It's a good question. I don't think it's going to impact in any shape or form. I know for sure it won't be negative. Now, tell me about yourself. What I thought is how I got to medicine, upbringing, bringing in medical and non-medical skills, and my values are in brief, and what I want to do and what ideas I have for myself. No, this is a great checklist. Like I said, look up elevator pitch, ELEAVATOR, elevator pitch, PITCH, and then combine these and that elevator pitch and try to see what you can come up with. They're looking more for your professional journey. They're not looking to hear about, how many kids do you have, or, are you married or not? That's not what their question is about. Tell me about yourself is an elevator pitch. Thank you, Prithvi.
Dr. Mannuru, the last segment of our webinar is post-interview follow-up, communication with the program. So this is our last segment. And
I think we have there's one more that's called post-match. What do we do or something, right?
Yes, post-match transition to residency. There are two.
That's the other one. Okay. So post-match, once you are post-match, you can send a letter of interest. I would encourage you to give it at least a week or two after your interview before you send a letter of interest. And that letter of interest or post-interview communication should be very, structured and short. You don't have to write a personal statement again saying, I'm very interested in your program. You sure can just give a brief introduction on what were the nice things that you encountered and what were the lovely people who interviewed you, and then, express your interest again. and send an email. And I would encourage you to send an email to the program director if a faculty does offer you any information during the interview saying, oh yeah, feel free to reach out to me with any questions, then please use that to your advantage. Send them an email thanking them, telling them what were the one or two things you learned during that interview, and tell them how motivated you are to join the program. So quite a lot of times, these faculty do have an impact, and they can go and tell the program director also that they received a positive communication from you. Now, the next question is, don't you think that with 15 signals in internal medicine this season, programs might say, well, if you're sending a letter of interest and you are very interested, why didn't you signal? It's a good question, but I don't think there are, if it comes to that point where you are in that top 15 or 50 students, and they see that you did not signal them, but you sent a letter of interest, it's not going to be a deal breaker. So just send it. It's okay. I mean, what will you lose? I don't think they're going to hold that against you and not give you a position if they've already chosen you to rank. I even sent a letter of interest to the programs I signaled. I mean, I gave reasons as to why I signaled you, stuff I couldn't put in my PS, as there is a limitation on how much you can put over there. Sure. And then Saganesh asked a question, tell me about the use and impact of letter of interest and how to write it. I think I just answered that. If you have anything further beyond that, please let me know, and I'm happy to answer that question.
Okay, so can you discuss about the post-match transition to residency? This is our last segment.
Sure. So transition to residency is very important. Please understand. See, international medical graduates have a need to understand the clinical health system of US. See, it's not just the cultural change that you are coming into. It is the language change that you are coming into. It's a whole system change that you're going to be experiencing. It is also the way you have to deliver care is probably different from the home countries. So you're literally just taking your medical knowledge and coming into a different country and trying to learn how to care for these patients here. So that is the big thing that you're doing. It's a great thing, but you have to prepare for residency. You have to be a little more ready than what you think you are before hitting that day one of residency. A lot of programs in the country, there are 6,300 programs in the US or more. They do provide onboarding for a week or so before you join residency and you start working on the floors. But that 1 week of onboarding has a lot of other things that are just put into that 1 week so that they can get all of that shared with you before you go and start practicing. So the problem is you might not know everything from a technical skill standpoint to be ready to do that work on day one. So what I'm trying to suggest is please prepare yourselves to be ready for day one residency. And even some programs are actually looking for candidates who are actually going to be ready for day one in residency through some filters. I can't speak about what filters and all of those, but they can look for such skills. So we have a program through CPFS. It's called Residency Readiness. There are 6 topics that we cover during that boot camp. I will tell you the topics. The first topic is residence assessment and grading. See, if you might think, yeah, you'll be told about this when you join, but trust me, I've had residents who've been told about this when they probably joined, and I've had residents who've never told about it and they graduated too. Or I've had residents who've heard about it when they were called to their program director's office saying that they're not doing well. So the first topic will be about resident assessments and grading. I will walk you through all specialties. It's not just medicine or family medicine or pediatrics or neurology. You will hear about what are all the different types of evaluations and grading that are used to grade residents during training. You will understand what is entrustable professional activity, what is competency-based medical education. So there'll be a lot of things we will talk about under that topic. Then the second topic is I will walk you through what medical record documentation is. I will walk you through the important topics that you need to be aware of in that section. And then in the third section, we'll talk about a little bit about the billing aspects that you need to be aware of, because once you start residency, you will hear quite a lot about all of these things. And that 1 week of onboarding is going to be so overwhelming that you might not know. Then we'll also talk about US healthcare. I'll walk you through what is Department of Health, what is CMS, where do we go from here, what are care transitions, what is a level 1 hospital, what's a level 3 hospital, and so many other things will be covered. So it's a 2-day boot camp. One session is scheduled for April 19th and 20th in India. And then the second session is scheduled for May 16th and 17th in the US. So right now we only have 2 locations that we offer this course. So feel free to check us out and review our website. The 2-day boot camp will include materials that you can take home with. It will also provide lunches during the sessions and, some coffee and snacks. And you will receive 2 30-minute slots that you can use within 6 months of completion of that course to reach out to me with any questions you have. So once you finish the boot camp, you might not know how much it will impact your training and practice. But when you start, you will then start to realize the things I have probably told you. And if you get questions, you'll still have the option of scheduling with me at 2 30-minute sessions separately. So transition to residency is a big topic. When you have free time, just Google and see what comes up. US medical schools are already doing their best to equip their medical students to be good residents. Now, if we don't put maybe 30% more effort, we will not be as successful as US graduates, although we carry the same level or even higher medical knowledge. That's my 2 cents on that.
Dr. Mannuru, there's 2 questions in the chat box. Can you please look on that question, please?
Yeah, what may be the content of letter of interest? Letter of interest is basically telling you are interested in that program, right? So that is the core of that letter. Now, how do you put that across depends on the situation. So is it before the interview or after the interview? So if it is before the interview, then you're going to talk about a brief paragraph about, your skills, like tell me about yourself, then a small paragraph about why you think this program is the best fit for you. It can be the aims and objectives. It can be the geographical preference. It can be that your family or wife is in residency in one program and you want to stay in the same program area. And then a closing statement saying, thank you, please consider me for an interview. If it's an after interview letter, then the story is different. You will tell them, interview, I so enjoyed the interview with this person. I am fortunate enough to have come to the pre-interview dinner. It was a lovely experience. Thank you for hosting this. And then saying, during my interview, I witnessed these lovely things that speak about the culture, or that speak about the excellent patient care, or that speak about the opportunities that your program has. I'm so looking forward to be a part of your program. And then Prithvi Basu asks, I applied to UND. Can you tell us the filters or criteria your program uses to screen applicants or select interviewers? Please reply only if it's ethical to do so. Prithvi, that's a good question. We don't have anything big. Just check our objectives and you'll understand. If you haven't read our objectives, then I would encourage you to read those objectives and see what you find. University of North Dakota has 8 categorical positions every year. We are the only internal medicine categorical program for the entire state of North Dakota. We don't have any other internal medicine program as of now, but there is an internal medicine residency program coming in North Dakota in Bismarck. So for candidates who are applying for next year, check out UND, check out Sanford Internal Medicine Residency Program, Bismarck. That will be a new program that's going to be added. But most of these programs, what we try to gain is gain good students, gain students with good interpersonal skills and who are professional, and then also gain students who have a genuine interest to serve the community. North Dakota has a lot of rural areas. There are limited physician resources. So if a program trains physicians, then the state leadership also would expect that these physicians in some shape or form give back by serving the community. So there are some of these objectives that I just shared. And good student, when you say good student with medical knowledge and a well-rounded person, leadership, volunteerships. And when you interview a student, then you will also understand to some extent their interpersonal communication skills and professionalism. Next question. I have 2 questions, Ansri, regarding USMLE scores before you conclude. And I'm open. We can go for another 10-15 minutes if needed to answer questions. So don't bother.
Thank you, Dr. Manu. Thank you so much, Dr. Manu.
With step 1 being pass-fail now, are program directors blinded to candidates with numerical step 1 score? Yes, they are. If you've taken it during the pass-fail time, yes, we won't get a score. If a candidate had a below mean step 1 score and was able to make up for it with the above mean step 2 score, will the low step 1 score still be considered as a red flag? Not really, no. But I can't speak for all the programs. At least a good number of programs have chosen to be respectful and be balanced in how they approach step 1. So if we are in an era where everybody's step 1 pass fail, and there is one candidate that probably has a score, at least most of the programs have stopped looking at just that one score and neglecting all the effort and hard work that the candidate has put in to get a good step 2 score. There is some increased emphasis on looking at step 2 score now. So I would encourage IMGs to focus on step 2 and do their best in step 2. And step 3, but step 3 is not that truly looked from a score standpoint to identify candidates, but there are a few programs that might look at that too. So next question. I work as a resident physician in general medicine in my hometown country. We write patient records manually on files, and during my US clinical experience, I had observational access to EMR. Will it hurt my chances to tell the PDs during the interview that I am not used to the EMR system as IMG? I don't think you even have to speak about it because electronic medical record system is something that's far widely used and far widely accessible to learners in the US, to my knowledge. Of course, there might be UK and European countries, but in home countries, in Asia and I think even in Africa, quite a lot of documentation does happen on paper. And even if it happens on the computers, the electronic medical record system might be different. So I'm not going to, I personally don't think a program director will ask you about electronic medical record, your skills on electronic medical records. How much of an impact does step 3 have? And what do you think of having step 3 as an applicant? So that's a great question, I tell you. Step 3 is a pivotal exam. It carries substantial benefits for international medical graduates. If a student is seeking H-1 visa sponsorship, I encourage them to complete the exam and receive results before the end of the interview season. You should update your status on the ERAS application and notify the programs you have interviewed or applied to. If you're a student seeking J-1 visa sponsorship, I would still encourage you to complete the exam and be done with it. The reason why I'm saying all of this is, once you start residency, the first 2 months would be a little challenging because you're trying to learn a whole new system. And then by the 3rd month or so, you will be expected to engage in an in-training examination. So there are in-training examinations that residents have to complete during their training. There are 3 in-training exams for medicine. So if you have 2 months of practice that you're trying to sort out, and then you have the step 3 on your head, and then you have the in-training exam again, that'd be a lot. So if possible, please try to finish it. The situation also gets a little more complex because if you see programs that are heavily dependent on candidates requiring sponsorship, visa sponsorship, they would prefer that you complete the steps as promptly as possible, because if you're not eligible for the visa sponsorship and they have offered you a position, then that position can become vacant for them and their whole schedule will suffer. And as their schedule will suffer, the colleagues in your program might also get impacted because of that one candidate not being able to present themselves for the residency. Now, score. A recent 2024 program director survey that was posted on NRMP indicated that very few programs consider step 3 in their ranking decisions, but it's very different for visa, for candidates who need visa. So because the program director survey that was filled out was only filled out by 1,050 program directors out of the 6,300. So I don't know what the other 5,000 are thinking because they didn't respond to the survey. So my 2 cents, finish your step 3 as soon as possible. And at this point, I don't think score in step 3 is a big deal. Next question. I've had similar doubt as well because my step 1 and step 2, I think it's the same thing. I feel EMR is something which we learn on the job. Although Epic has too many buttons, I've had only access. I had only view access, and I saw PGY2s asking attendees or seniors for help with some parts of it. I completely agree that EMR is something that you will learn even after you finish residency. So I have played in EMR during residency, and then I switched into an attending role. I got exposed to one type of EMR. Then I switched to my job in 2013. And then I was exposed to another type of EMR. So you will learn as you go, but you need to have some basics. And I think that's what our bootcamp will teach you. I am hoping to get some access for EMRs for the bootcamp. At this time, I don't have any yet, but you will see more. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, for someone with 2 attempts on step 1, a gap in their CV, what's the best way to continue your journey for application? It's a tough question, a candidate, whoever has asked this question. 2 attempts in step 1, if you are able to overcome these situations and demonstrate that you are capable further, for example, if you get an excellent step 2 score and then you complete a good step 3 right away, and then you polish yourself with some sort of a master's in clinical research training or master's in public health, and you show efforts that was a small phase of your life where things were not right, but you have put efforts and you are trying to make it better and you have shown that you can do it, then I think you will have good chances, because programs are looking at holistic assessment of a candidate. So in addition to programs looking at first attempts and excellent scores and good publications and leaderships, programs are also looking at candidates who have demonstrated resilience, who have demonstrated ability to overcome hardships, who have demonstrated that commitment that they will do better as they are now fully committed and they're genuine. So if you can show such things moving forward, then there's going to be a good opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mannuru. There is no question. So it's a great session by you. And can I share clinical practice foundation skill with the participant if you want?
Yes, let me just so I put in the website in the chat box, and also please, Zafar, if you could share that, that'd be much appreciated. At this time, for this match cycle residents or students, we offer mock interviews and we offer residency boot camps. Please look at those. My mock interview is not going to be something that I'm going to sit there and, coach you. My mock interview is basically you coming as if you're going for an interview, fully ready, and then you come and present yourself, and then we'll do an interview. So that is what my mock interview is going to look like. And if you do that interview, then I will look at how you're performing. I will look at how your whole background is set up, and then I will guide you based on that. And then I will also throw some curveball questions to prepare you. So I would encourage people, if they're considering mock interviews, to take it at least a week or 10 days before your real interview, so that you have that time to prepare for the curveball questions that I will put forth during those mock interviews. I also request you to please consider the boot camps. The boot camps are something that I have put together after seeing so many years of students trying IMGs. Try it. It's not going to hurt you, but if it benefits you, you will have a smooth transition. You will have wonderful family time. You will be able to focus on your fellowship interests, all of those. So please check out. And for aspirants and students who are looking to apply for next year, I do have a personal statement editing course. It's very different than a lot of programs out there, so please check it out. I don't want to compare what's best, what's not best. You make that choice. And I did share that. I did share the link, but let me just try it again. 1 second.